Welcome back to NeuroConversant Leadership, where we talk about effective leadership and communication, especially in the STEM workplace. I'm Jeremy Doran, and I love helping great technical people become great leaders. Today, we're doing a test. I've been writing a lot of articles and blogs, and I think there's great content, but they're written. So I'm going to be recording some of the articles that I've recently written. This is my first try at it. So I'm going to make that this week's episode of NeuroConversant Leadership. I think that going forward, I'm probably going to record more of them, but I won't replace the regular episode with them. I will just have them as a catalog. You'll be able to get it through this podcast or elsewhere as well. But for now, we're just going to try it. This is a test. What ADHD actually is and how it shows up in the workplace. ADHD is the most commonly cited type of neurodivergence, which leads one to believe that it should be well understood. ADHD in the workplace is gaining attention, but can be a mystery to many of us. It is clearly defined to professionals with clear and specific criteria, but for the rest of us, it can be confusing. It's both over and underdiagnosed. It may or may not include hyperactivity. There isn't actually a deficit of attention. The word disorder implies that the brain of people with ADHD is broken, which it isn't. According to the Cleveland Clinic, ADHD isn't about having too little attention. It's about regulating where the attention goes. In fact, a person with ADHD may have too much of it. It's not a deficit problem, it's a dysregulation problem. People with ADHD have a dysregulation in dopamine and norepinephrine production and use in the brain, making it more difficult to focus on low stimulation tasks. It's a wiring difference, not a flaw. This is supported by the Huberman Lab and a paper published in the National Library of Medicine. ADHD is ultimately a difference in the way a person's brain manages planning, organizing, initiating, and regulating attention. A person with ADHD may be hyperfixated on some things to the point of forgetting to eat or sleep. He or she may have difficulty maintaining focus on administrative tasks when there's the slightest distraction. There may even be an inability to start a task at all, and that's known as initiation paralysis. This is by no means a comprehensive explanation of what ADHD is, but what's important to note is that it isn't really a deficit of attention. It's about the challenge in focusing that attention. So how common is it? It's believed that about 11% of children have ADHD. According to data from the National Institute of Mental Health, more than 60% still have it as an adult. Boys are diagnosed at 15%, but girls only at 8%. The reason is that girls' symptoms tend to be inattentiveness, while boys' symptoms tend to be hyperactivity, which frustrates teachers and gets noticed much sooner. Younger children in a class, those with birthdays just before the enrollment cutoff, are 38% more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. The theory is that teachers compare children to their peers and their classmates, and the younger children are simply less developed. More and more adults are being diagnosed with ADHD in their 30s and 40s. They've struggled with focus, attention all of their lives, and they're finally getting the relief of having a concrete reason why. And self-diagnosis is becoming very common. A study of 33,000 college students at 51 different universities showed that 15% self-reported having ADHD. Formal diagnosis rates of that same population are estimated around 5%. These statistics make it clear that ADHD is overdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, and often self-diagnosed. Rather than creating a label out of it, we can instead learn to capitalize on the strengths and minimize the challenges that ADHD presents. There are 3 very powerful traits in people with ADHD: hyperfocus, creativity, and unconventional thinking. Many of history's great inventors and innovators show signs of having ADHD. In fact, research published in the Journal of Business Venturing found that over 29% of entrepreneurs exhibit ADHD characteristics, compared to roughly 4 to 5% of the general population. Innovation requires seeing things in a new way, coming up with creative solutions and focusing on it for as long as it takes to get that thing done. When channeled, those are incredible traits. Creativity helps a group come up with new ideas, Conventional thinking challenges the status quo and reduces mistakes through challenging groupthink. Hyperfocus is sometimes necessary for working through a problem. These are traits that every company seeks, but there are challenges. While it's clear that ADHD provides unique and important strengths, there's definitely some challenges that come along with it. Executive functions are required for managing time, initiating tasks, and maintaining order, and that's where many people with ADHD struggle the most. That beautiful brain with the ability to hyperfocus for hours on an engaging problem can practically shut down when it comes to doing administrative tasks. In school, it may manifest as acing a project, then forgetting to turn in a homework assignment that was completed on time. If you are a person with ADHD, building external structures can go a long way to shoring up what the ADHD brain struggles to do on its own. Time blocking and creating visible schedules make it easy to decide what to do. Breaking larger projects into small steps with defined deadlines creates the urgency ADHD brains need in order to be fully engaged. For people with ADHD, verbal instructions are often processed and forgotten before they can be acted upon. ADHD affects working memory and the brain's ability to hold and manipulate information in the short term. Whenever possible, request written instructions rather than verbal ones. If they aren't provided, find a way to record what's being talked about so that you can refer to it later. Externalizing the information by writing it down greatly reduces the amount of mental energy needed to track and remember what was said. Capitalize on your ability to focus. Do big, important, and complex tasks at the time of day when you're most focused and creative. Lean into that power of hyperfocus. Be sure to set a timer for when that focus is to end. Then take a break to create transition time before taking on your next task. If you're interacting with people who have ADHD, set agendas before meetings and provide information needed ahead of time. It's beneficial for everyone, but especially for people with ADHD. Providing that structure will help you get the best out of everyone. None of us have flawless memories. So after verbal conversations, send a written follow-up summarizing the discussion. That's helpful for the neurodivergent and the neurotypical alike. Be explicit about priorities. Deciding what to do next can feel insurmountable to people with ADHD. By clearly stating priorities and the order in which they need to be done, you make it easier for them to focus their mind on the projects rather than the decision of what to do next. Accept the fact that people with ADHD are likely to fidget. Doodling, tapping, pacing, those aren't being disrespectful to the person speaking. They're a way of managing stimulation needs. Whenever possible, give people the freedom to fidget. So the bottom line on ADHD is rather than looking at it as a disorder, look at it as a series of traits. Those traits can be incredibly useful at times, and they can be challenging at others. No different than the traits that everyone has. Rather than stigmatizing people with ADHD, work with them. Help them capitalize on their strengths and create external structures and information to help reduce challenges. For people with ADHD, the goal is not to become neurotypical. The goal is to design an environment that unleashes your brain to do what it does best. That's a wrap on ADHD. If this resonated with you, my book is going to cover this and a whole lot more. All the ways that a person's brain works differently and how to communicate with and work better with people who think differently than you. It's coming out in the spring of 2026, so sign up to be on the launch VIP list for sneak previews and discounts at the launch. I'll put a link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you again next week.